What lessons do you think that the Boogeyman can teach us?
Oh, to stay awake at night thinking about all your problems?
Oh, absolutely. It's a good time for all.
Yeah, exactly. He's a sucker for a good time. The Boogeyman is a sucker for a good time because, he'll teach you to stay at home, worry about your problems, not look under the bed, learn how to dance, maybe party later, bad decisions.
Your electricity bill because you keep your lights on.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to be scared in the dark.
Well, I look under the bed because he owes me money, so I'm hoping that he leaves me there, because a tooth fairy would leave me money.
How much money does he owe you now?
Oh, you don't want to know.
About $350. That much?
350 times 4.
Oh. No, we'll talk about this later.
Yeah.
Hidden within the shadows, throughout tales that span generations, monsters exist in many forms. Explore the folklore, embrace its most important lasting features, and delve into information of the unexpected. These are Monster Myths. What you know about monsters could save a life, possibly even your own. I need you to help me inform the masses. I'm Kephen Sting, and tonight's Monster Myths features the Boogeyman. Good evening, both faithful and new viewers. It seems there's an evil entity out there so universal and widespread that it's nearly impossible to find its origin. But that doesn't stop it from haunting children's nightly slumber. The Boogeyman is known throughout the world by many names and guises. It is often the topic of films, books, and other media. Yet a defining picture in our mind of the exact monster still eludes us. And not knowing exactly what it looks like is precisely what makes it so scary. The Boogeyman is described as being amorphous, meaning having no single form. And just observing the number of Boogeyman-like creatures there are around the world, the different names and depictions of the entity are innumerable. I could see how this study could almost be overwhelming to most folks. But Kephen Sting is not most folks. So I've taken a stab at narrowing down the list to what appears to me to be the most prevalent versions in your dimension. Now, I got an email here from one of my Facebook friends on my fan page, a Jumbo from Sun City, Arizona. And he asked, what are the main traits of all Boogeymen? Well, the main traits will become obvious by the end of this episode. But to give you an idea, all of the Boogeymen can conform to the shadows, allowing them to hide and sneak about. They all prefer to dine on disobedient children, and none of them have any weaknesses, at least none that I can spot. First, let's identify just who or what we're dealing with. The Boogeyman is a mythical creature whose entire goal is to frighten children into good behavior. In English-speaking countries, he's known as the Boogeyman or the Bogeyman, sometimes also known as the Boogie Monster and the Bugbear. It has no specific appearance or look, and concepts of it vary from culture to culture. However, when it is depicted, it is most often a masculine or androgynous monster. Well, that's just a fancy way of saying it's half human, half whatever it is. He hides in the darkness, underneath beds or behind closet doors, sometimes scratches at windows and arrives with a sack on his back to snatch up disobedient children and carry them away. Now, the name is kind of a mystery in that its origins are estimations based off of related terms. Now, the word boogie or bogey is supposedly derived from the Middle English. Their terms, bogey or bug, mean something frightening or a scarecrow. In addition, the related word bugbear means a goblin or demon. Combine all this linguistic evidence and you've got a better idea of the intentional fear put into this term, the boogeyman. In fact, nowadays the term boogeyman can be used to express anything that personifies terror and can't be explained. What are you afraid of? The boogeyman? You see, it could be anything in the deepest, darkest parts of your imagination. I'm just having a little trouble with the heat in this house. Oh, it's hot. Anyway, there are some who believe the movie villain Michael Myers from the Halloween film franchise is the modern-day equivalent of the boogeyman. And that could be. Yet, ask anyone as a kid who was scared of the dark and they might discuss something very unique to them. For one of the most interesting features of this monster is that it is combined with a child's imagination, which, as far as scary things go, is unlimited.
You know, I'm gonna get real personal and talk about how the boogeyman was a gateway for me to understanding the concept of God. And that when I was told the boogeyman would come and get me, I always wondered, I was like, I got to that age where I wondered, well, what does he look like? I don't know what he looks like. And so he doesn't exist. That has to be the way that it works, right? I've been waiting for this guy to show up. I stay up late, look at the closet, look under my bed. He's not there. So, yeah, I think that there's something that could be learned from the absence of the boogeyman. Although he's very real up here, right?
I grew up in Indiana, woods behind my house. So we were allowed to watch horror movies when I was young, which explains a lot. And yeah, we were allowed to go out in the woods, but we would come home with. We did flashlight tag and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So we would come home, and I had two older brothers, and they would say that we brought them home with us, like we brought him home with us. So I still sleep with my light on.
Well, I was fascinated with, I really like ghosts and creepy things when I was a kid, so I actually really wanted to meet the boogeyman. I wasn't really scared of the boogeyman. Still haven't met him. Still haven't seen a ghost, unfortunately, but I would like to.
The main traits, he tries to scare kids into thinking that he's just a shadow, and the other thing is he lures them into something that, like, kind of like a torture chamber or stuff like that, so he can, like, feast on them. And then the last one is he likes to, like, sort of feast on what the kids think of him.
You do not know what he looks like. He will come and get you. I believe he is usually stationed somewhere behind a door, like a closet or under your bed.
Parents never believe you when you tell them about the boogeyman.
You know, I was like laying in my bed, and then Bella was like, "Hey, have you met my friend the Boogeyman? He's coming over later." And I was like, "Yeah, whatever." And I went to bed.
We were having a party and everything. I mean, oh my God. He wasn't ready for it. I don't know why you were in my bed at the time, but, you know, it was okay.
I'd like to know, too. Because I'm a fan of the boogeyman.
Right?
I'm a fan. He's a bad influence on two gentlemen
Well,
here.
maybe not too much a bad influence, but we had a good time.
Keeps you up all
Right?
night.
I know.
Keeps you
Good
up
time.
all night.
It's a good time.
I know. Yeah, don't be afraid of the Boogeyman because he's a good time.
Yeah, good time.
Pure evil is just something I think that you're born with. No parent can instill that in somebody. If you're born that way, you're born that way.
Now, as I studied your world for more examples of the boogeyman, it didn't take me long to realize there are dozens of mythical creatures that have it out for misbehaving children. Travel to Eastern Europe and you may deal with another kind of boogie monster who goes by the name Baba Yaga. She is a supernatural entity who appears as a hideous old woman. Within Russian fairy tales, she is known to fly through the air in her giant mortar while wielding a large pestle. Now, she also carries along a wire broom to sweep away her tracks before they can be discovered. And equally bizarre is that Baba Yaga lives deep within the forest inside a wooden hut, which is fixed on top of gigantic chicken legs. Now, these legs can uproot and move the hut around wherever it needs to go. However, once she stays in one place for a while, she surrounds her hut with a picket fence of human bones, with a skull set upon the top of each picket. She is not to be considered an ordinary witch. She has been known to eat children and occasionally even older humans who have gotten lost in her neck of the woods. So eat children and lost in her neck. I heard it. I promise. That was pun intentional. Now, once we take a look into Spain, Latin America, and Mexico, the boogeyman takes on several different guises. Now, let's see if I can help make them more clear. Now, there are 4 main entities to be aware of: El Cuco, El Coco, La Cuca, and El Cucoy. Now, I'll examine each one briefly with you now. El Cuco is a strange mix of witch, ghost, and monster. And like most of these entities, it is after those children that don't go to sleep. It is the Spanish equivalent of the boogeyman. And there's no single description that I can find except that it is hideous to look at. You could certainly use your imagination for this one. Then there's El Coco from the Mexico and Central American regions. Now, El Coco gets its name from the furry, rough surface of its skin and the giant head that he's supposed to have, like a coconut. Now, he lives under the bed and eats children who don't fall asleep. Next, there's La Cuca, which is one of the most frightening versions of the boogeyman, originating from the Brazil region. Now, she is based on a lullaby that warns children to go to sleep. La Cuca is described as a crocodile woman, a humanoid croc that only needs to sleep once every 7 years. She has a deep hunger for children who resist going to bed. And finally, quite possibly the scariest of all, El Cucoy. Now, this Mexican mythological creature kidnaps children who don't behave themselves. It is described as being a small, hideous, hairy creature with glowing red eyes, and its skull supports large, bat-like ears, and its mouth is full of razor-sharp teeth. Like the others, it hides in your closet or under your bed. It can hide within the dark shadow. It watches silently, waiting for a moment to snag the child, take it to its lair, and devour it. Well, all of these are actually quite scary. I wonder what the public has to say about these creatures.
I'm afraid of the boogeyman.
I was taught about the boogeyman was don't misbehave or he's going to get you. Well, I definitely was told about the boogeyman by my mother and my stepdad at the time, and it was always used as a means to get me to go to bed, or else he would come and get me.
It was always different. Like, she'd always say, like, the boogeyman was like a man, something tall, something scary, like dark. Like, nothing's, like, no specific feature. It's just always kind of like a shadow kind of a thing that's going to follow me around, be in, like, dark corners, under beds and stuff. And, like, La Llorona was more of, like, a woman in the streets who, would, if we stayed out too late at night, she'll come out and come get us and stuff like that. She always tell me stuff like that.
I would say it's probably the parents. I don't think that it just came out of a kid's imagination. I think there's just, like, a really mean uncle once that made it up. And then the kid told other kids, and then it's just become an urban legend. Or maybe a legend. It might not be urban.
I think it's the child's imagination processing what they think and what they don't think of him.
I think it started off with kids making it up, and then parents went along with it to mess with them, and like I said, to get them to do things. I think that's how it started.
Gosh. Well, it definitely wasn't my parents putting that into my head. I think, I don't know, I think kids create that. I kind of think that, like I was telling someone the other day, I don't think kids know things are scary unless they're told that they're scary. Right. So if you never tell a kid something's scary.
Because kids have a different perspective of what they're seeing.
As adults, we talk ourselves into thinking that there's not these beings. Yeah. And so the children actually haven't learned that yet. So because they have a more honest connection to other dimensions, they actually see them.
Right.
I think the children are right. I think adults are wrong.
Well, children have a very active imagination. You know, they can think beyond. They think beyond things and in different ways that adults really do. Adults get jaded. Everything becomes kind of like in a box. At least not to all of us, but a lot of us. And kids, you know, they could take the idea of the boogeyman and run with it and really believe in its existence. And no one tells you, you know, when you're a kid and you hear Santa Claus, you think Santa's real, so you think the boogeyman's real. So it has more power if you believe it's real. Kind of like it. Pennywise.
Imagination, of course. They think he's a lot worse, why he's the target of the boogeyman.
Oh, the boogeyman? Yeah, he makes your imagination run wild, right?
The children have no stop button. Just go and go.
Yeah, and they just, you know, he's the target thing. That's why he targets them, those kids, and they're delicious too, right?
Oh, God.
You guys like children, right?
I love children.
Yeah, I guess
Grated roast with a little bit of lemon peel. Oh, delicious.
He does not eat children. We do not eat children.
Now, this mythological monster comes in many forms, but we can see that there are some commonalities between them no matter what part of the world we find them in. There are many more examples from all sorts of countries, and clearly I don't have time to indulge in each one of them in this episode, but I can share a few more with you now. In faraway Japan, their boogeyman comes out on New Year's and goes from house to house searching for disobedient children. Now, the Namahage is a blue-skinned beast who, if he finds that there are only good children at a house, moves on to the next one. Often seen in parades, this monster is famous all across Japan. Now, in the Philippines exists probably the most frightening version of the boogeyman called Pujo Mamu. Now, this entity is a headless shapeshifter who lives in deserted houses and forests. Now, the story is that it is self-beheaded and will eat children it finds through a hole in its neck. Now, I gotta tell you, this monster scares the crap out of me. I mean, eats you through a gaping neck wound? All right, next we move on to Quebec, where there's a boogeyman entity there that could be considered the most punctual of them all. The 7 o'clock man supposedly comes by homes at the same time of the evening to see if children are behaved and in bed. If they're not, well, you guessed it, he takes them away in a sack to his cave, where they are put in an oven, cooked, and devoured. There are many more myths such as these. Just pick a country and they've probably got a boogeyman legend that is passed on from family to family for generations. It's quite astounding, the universality of this particular myth. It makes me wonder if it's common for kids of all countries to be haunted by these creatures. I mean, paranormal beasts who demand they sleep at night and stay generally well behaved? Are children of this age more vulnerable to the reach of evil? Perhaps it's merely to protect children. But certainly, if these entities are real, conducting good behavior is a matter of life or death. Maybe you younger viewers should be as polite as possible to your parents. And for flip's sake, go to bed at night. I mean, gaping neck wound? Ugh. But you know, I am impressed with the sheer number of boogeyman entities out there in the world. But it does reveal a notion I've had. It seems, cross-culturally, that there is a common theme in each variation, that of parents disciplining their children so they grow up relatively safe. Now, we've all had the same issues of child raising. Now, I find that really interesting. And what about those that aren't well behaved? My guess is that if you're a monster with a taste for human flesh, then maybe it's misbehaved children that taste the best. And so, faithful viewers, have you grown up with any of these stories? Did any of them frighten you as a child? Tell me about your experiences. Write to me here or on my Facebook fan page. And if I have missed any important details in my descriptions, please let me know. For it's of the utmost importance that we inform the masses. Some monsters invade our private world through the darkness within shadows, and with access like that to our subconscious minds, there might just be nowhere to hide. Stay aware out there, for you never know what could be knocking outside your door. I'm Kephen Sting, and these are Monster Myths.